Hi everyone, I'm Fina. Welcome back to Fina Reads. Today with my bi-weekly book ramblings, and there's quite a bit to talk about. First of all, new setup. I'm kind of switching things around and I recorded with my iPhone and I'm recording with my camera and I'm just trying to see what works. Oh my goodness, if you would see the cable mess here, you would all cry probably. I do. This is a lot of stuff. Anyway. Alright, so this is kind of not just bi-weekly rambling, but also a little bit August wrap-up, because I don't think I need a separate August wrap-up because I talked about all the books already. So unless you want me to, let me know. But I think the bi-weekly videos are hopefully enough. I don't know. We will see. You know what? It doesn't matter. I'm just trying it out. So let's talk a little bit about August. In August, it was a little bit slower reading month because mainly the last week was kind of meh, but let's talk about that later. In August, I read 7 books total. 3 of those were part of the Green Rider series. Well, I've talked about this before, right? And I've talked about it in my Green Rider series review. And yeah, I'm not going to talk about it again. If you want to hear me talk about my favorite book series of all time, take a look at my Green Rider review. Then I had 2 historical fiction and 2 non-fiction, and I read a total of 3,046 pages in August, which is pretty much average. There were some big chunkers in there. And rating generally was pretty good. I had 1 2-star read, 1 3-star, 1 4, and then 4 5-star reads. And then because I read a lot of books from the same authors, it ended up being 2 female authors, 2 male, and 2 of them from the US, 1 from the UK, 1 from Germany. Just to summarize real quickly, I'm not talking about each individual book because I talked about it in the first, which was the last, bi-weekly ramblings, so I read Firebrand, Winterlight, and Dreamgatherer from Kirsten Britton, and I have a whole review on that. So I'm not talking about this again, but read this series. It's really good. Then I read Somebody's Daughter, which was a non-fiction biography. Also, I talked about that one already in my book ramblings. And then I started the series Sons of Rome. The series is called Empress of Rome, Rise of the Emperors, something very similar. And I read Sons of Rome and Masters of Rome, book 1 and 2. About book 1, I've already talked about. Book 2, I will talk a little bit more detail. And then I've read the... I'm not saying it in German. I read the Communist Manifesto, but I read it in German, but I have the book in English and in German. But again, more detail on that in a minute. So that's kind of my August. Since the last bi-weekly book rambling, so we kind of have August and September. This gets really confusing. So I will finish out August and then talk about how September went so far. Spoiler, not great. And yeah, let's just go from there. So Masters of Rome is book 2 in the Rise of the Emperor series. And I've read that and loved it. That was one of my 5-star reads. I cannot wait to read book 3, which is definitely high on my to-read list for actually sooner rather than later this month. Maybe my next book. Who knows? Great continuation of the series. So the same character development continues. The same character depth. The same fast-paced, moving through the story. Both books have in common that they jump pretty quickly through the time zone. So in book 1, Sons of the Emperor, you meet Constantine and Maxentius as young boys. And in book 1, they basically grow up. And in book 2, you are really thrown into the political intrigue, into their everyday life. You're meeting their wives, their family, their kiddos. And I have to say, book 2, Masters of Rome, that was the first time where someone wrote a scene that helped me understand what it is to be a parent. The way he described the relationship to one of the sons, father and son, was incredible. It was such a well-written, well-explained love between father and son that I've never seen before, and that already was the 5-star part for me. But he continued writing about what they're going through. He really explained what they were thinking or why they were doing what they were doing, and with such a logical explanation and logical walkthrough that I could completely empathize with both main characters. And what I also really liked is that both of them were really different because they had different ideals and they had a slightly different upbringing, both of them. And that made them decide certain things the way they did. Anyway, it doesn't make really a whole lot of sense, but it was really good. Amazing writing, and I can't wait to see how the series finishes out with Gods of Rome. And I hope, I'm kind of hoping for a good ending. I have a feeling there's not going to be one, but I'm kind of hoping for a good ending. There's a lot of drama in those books. Whoa. And the next one is technically one book, but it's two books. Anyway, Christy, Pete, and Gregory did a live stream. They buddy read the Communist Manifesto, and I caught their live stream halfway to the end, and it sounded really interesting what they were talking about. And I actually thought I had kind of, not the urge to read it, but I was interested in reading it eventually. So I thought, this is a perfect timing, and it's not a big book. I actually grew up in East Germany when the wall was still up. Well, I was not living behind the wall then. I would have lived in West Germany, technically. But anyway, so it was that time. And East Germany was Russian territory back then. So communism was very prevalent. And I remember my mom telling me a lot of stories from her time growing up there. I don't remember too much because I was really young. And when the wall fell, I was still a child, so there's not much memory, but I remember my mom and my grandma telling me about the story. So eventually I thought, it would be great to know more about the person and his thoughts of the kind of country that I grew up in. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, so this book is the one that Christy showed. That's the Penguin Classics Communist Manifesto, and that has, you can see it's a bit chunkier. It has the manifesto, but also then some historical information in the front, just on what the world was at that time and why it would have been a good idea. I don't know if it would have ever been a good idea, to be honest, but why people were interested in those types of things Karl Marx was saying back then. It's about the life of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. So it's just history, nonfiction history. And then the last part is the Communist Manifesto, which is actually not that long. But I started reading it in English and I was like, what? I have no idea. So I ordered it in German and I read the German version of it. So you see, that's much thinner. And that was like a $3 version that also has typos on the top. They spelled the names wrong. And there are typos in the text and formatting is not great. So you can see it's just a $3 book. But it was interesting and I read through it. I didn't understand everything, even in my native language. It was still a lot of rambling, but it was just interesting to hear his thoughts and hear or learn a little bit more on where communism is coming from and the values of communism. Again, not saying I'm aligned with that or anything. It was just interest in this book, and I'm definitely interested in reading more, not just about communism, but also socialism and other isms like populism, nationalism, just historical background, where they're coming from, who invented them, why did they become popular, what are the values. It's just interesting to learn more about politics. That is a sentence. Just a couple of years ago, I never thought I would ever say. I always thought politics is super boring. I was never interested in any of it. But turns out it is actually really interesting. So that's kind of how I finished out August with Communist Manifesto and Masters of Rome, coming into September. And I talked a little bit about that in my September TBR already, but I'm diving a little bit deeper. So I definitely want to continue with finishing out the history part. It's a bit dry, so I need to be in the mood of it, and it's probably only a few pages at a time. I'm still not super excited about politics, but it is interesting enough that I want to continue. Then another nonfiction book that I started in August, but didn't finish yet, is The Bullet Journal Method. And that is because July and August at work have been rather challenging. We had a really big launch where a lot of moving parts kept me up at night, and I was thinking, oh my god, hopefully I didn't forget this. And then the next morning I woke up and was like, oh my god, I forgot that last day. And it was a huge team that worked on it, and it was a very visible project that a lot of people in the organization at a high level were looking at, so from an executive level interest. And it was my first big project in that new role, so there was a lot of pressure. Some of the pressure that I just built up that I probably didn't need to have, but here we are. So there was a lot of stuff going on while my regular work was still moving forward. And I am usually a very organized person, and I rarely miss something or I rarely forget something, and I always had a lot of stuff on my plate. But that project really completely, I don't know, I lost it. I forgot so many things, and I moved so many things out where I hope I just didn't forget anything, that I was just sitting there at the end once the project was done. It's like, okay, how do I organize myself now? Because I know this is not going to be the last project of this size. It's only there are more to come of that size. So I just needed something that helps me be more organized than I already was. So this was actually recommended to me by one of my colleagues that I worked with. She's using it on a daily basis. My manager is using it as well. So I just picked it up and thought, you know what, I did bullet journaling before. I understood the concept, but for me it was always more about art and making pretty pages rather than actually using it to be organized, which kind of seems weird now that I'm saying this out loud. But anyway, so I read through this and I basically created kind of really a pulled back version, super easy to use bullet journal method. And I'm about halfway through. So I am through the part where he explains how to set up the bullet journal. And the next part is really now, how do you use it? Practice, on a daily basis. How do you migrate things from one day to another, from 1 week to another, from 1 month to another, etc. It's interesting. There is those parts I'm skipping, but just in case you're interested in it, it is based on being grateful, being mindful. So he has a lot of things like that woven into the book. I'm jumping over this because I'm really just interested in how do you bullet journal so you stay organized? Great book, easy read, really great explanation. There are visuals too that help understand how things are set up. The other book that I started reading in August and that I'm still in the middle of is Zen Essence. And I don't know. I'm short of DNFing this book. I'm sorry. So I'm halfway through now. If you see my September TBR, you saw that I was a little bit more at the beginning. I read a little bit more today, so I'm halfway through. Last week just has been not a good reading week. I don't know, maybe it's the wrong week to read this at the moment. Maybe I'm not in the right headspace right now. I don't know. But this is essentially the book that I've read all last week. So the second week of my first week of September, second week of my bi-weekly ramblings. And I'm just not getting into it. I have zero feelings for Zenlin himself, for Thomas Zenlin. I know that the author keeps telling me that he's naive and someone who thinks everybody is morally correct, and that he is someone who believes in being right and, I don't know, following the law and stuff like that. And he tells me that. I don't necessarily see that on his actions. He seems way too eager to jump into really non-legal activities and going against what they're saying you should do. So I don't know, it feels, not all the time, but there are situations in there where I'm just and then till just the last chapter, I finally got a glimpse into why he's loving his wife, because everything before, and that is hang on. So I'm on page 225 now, so the chapter before that, so 200 pages in, I'm finally getting a chapter on why he loves his wife. I find that too late. Here's the thing, and I think I said that before. If I'm reading a series and I need to read the entire first book, sitting there asking myself what the hell is going on, I'm already not really excited about continuing with the series. And this is one of those books where you just, and that's what I asked. I talked with people on Discord and I was like, hey, is anyone explaining any of this at any point in the story? And they said, yeah, you just have to roll with it. And I was like, I don't want to roll with it though. I want explanations of it. And people say this is kind of an Alice in Wonderland, and I agree with it. But even in Alice in Wonderland, where things are just weird and you're just rolling with it, you knew going in that things are weird. Here, it is a normal world setup, but then there are supernatural things happening, and all of a sudden you're like, no one stops and wonders why. They are all just okay with it. I don't know yet. It's plus I'm not into the main character. I very neutral. Like, my opinion of him is very neutral. I don't feel with him. I don't feel sorry for him. I don't think he's dumb. I don't think he is naive. He's just moving along, and he's just going with the flow. And some things are rather convenient too, and some things are very obvious already. I don't know, guys. I don't know what to tell you, but I'm not super excited right now. So I'm starting part 3. I'll maybe give it the rest of the day, and then we'll see where we're at. I'm not sure. I've set that for 100 pages now. So 100 pages ago, I was at the point where I was like, should I DNF it? Then 50 pages ago, I was, when does it finally, does something? And now I'm sitting still here. I'm sorry. I don't know. Everybody seems to love it, and I really like the premise. I truly like the uniqueness of the story. His writing is okay, I guess. I mean, I don't find it super exciting, but at least it's not really bad either. It's okay writing. The premise definitely very unique. I mean, that Tower of Babel seems really a character in itself. I like the Hitchhiker's Guide Through the Galaxy kind of flair in it, but I don't know. None of the characters got me excited, and I'm just sitting there like, what? So we'll see. All right, enough about that. Final section of the video is what am I going to write next? So I have a week of PTO now, so I hope I'm getting some books done and can catch up my really slow last week. So I want to finish Sandlin. I definitely want to read Gods of Rome. That is really high on my list. If I feel in this week like something slow, this might also be one, now that I have the actual physical copy here and I'm not forgetting it on my Kindle all the time. That might be a very good option. And then I kind of think this week also might be a good one to read something sad where I need to cry, which is why I also might pick up Kite Runner. So those 3 are kind of the books that are currently in my head, besides finishing the other books from end of August. I kind of want to read those as well. I hate having too many books at the same time. I cannot have too many books at the same time. So those, and then if you see my September TBR, there's quite a bit more. So there are a lot of books. I pretty much put all the books of the September TBR in this list. Maybe I get them done in this week. That would be 1 book a week. I don't think this is going to happen. All right. Yeah, now let's stay with what I said before. Gods of Rome, Radical Act of Free Magic, finishing those books, and Kite Runner. I think that's a good plan for a week. That's more than enough for a week. Ay. That's it. That was enough rambling about books. I will end it here. Thank you so much for stopping by, for watching my video. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and then I will see you soon with my next video. Bye!